Uja Rastafari.
Rastafari.
We give thanks, my Lord, for the information, the education. Yeah. Mostly when information hits you, you are not the same again when you get the right education. Education changes your thought processes, that a lot of things that you used to hold on to begins to change. I'll hereby invite comments, questions, additions, or where we think we disagree with the presenter, we can put. So please, we now invite comments and questions. Yes, sir. Yes, my lord, please come in.
Give thanks, Rasquesi, for such an insightful and brilliant presentation. I think that when we talk about abolition, sometimes the focus is too much on the physical abolition. I think that you made it very clear that when we're talking about abolition, we are abolishing everything that is a colonizing force. And that includes their ways of knowing, their ways of governance, their ways of trade, and their ways of, everything. And we are emphasizing our ways. So I give thanks for that. I think that also another point that came through is strongly is that most of the time when we hear discussions on slavery, the whole idea is that the Africans were just sitting down, waiting, and just the white man just came and just took our people away and sent them to the West. And I think you've given us a whole lot of examples of that not being the case. And I think that one recent one that we also should bring in mind is, I want to say in 2016 or 2015, somewhere the Dutch, I believe, returned the decapitated head of King Bedu Bonsu, who was the king of the Hunter people of the coastal region of Ghana. Now, this was after much agitation by the people, and his head had been kept in a glass cage in that cold part of Europe. Now, the thing is, when they talk about King Bedu Bonsu, they don't talk about why they felt the need to cut off his head. But the main thing that was going on with King Bedu Bonsu was that he was organizing his people to attack the white people who were there to enslave the Africans on a consistent basis. In fact, there was an issue that precipitated in the cutting of his head where, they gathered 3 whites and just cut off their heads, right, and brought it to King Bedu Bonsu. And then that also resulted in the retaliation of his head being cut and sent to the Netherlands or wherever that they sent it to. So I think it's very important to highlight these kinds of instances because it requires a reset of the mind. These days when you're using the word reset, you have to be very careful because you have entered into the political phase. But it's a great contribution to how we can look at this this story. There is a popular saying that if we don't tell our own story, the hunter always is going to project himself as the victor, and we don't get to tell our story. So, there are many instances. I think that with that, as you have shown, that the resistance has been from day one, right? From
exactly,
Black people have always been the first abolitionists because we were to resist the very idea of being enslaved. So I'm going to pause here for right now and allow somebody else to make a contribution. Give thanks, Rastafari.
Give thanks. Man, brethren, that's as always, man, thanks for that. You just enriched one's understanding of things through just few moments of you speaking too. Just give me a thought when you said the head in cut off. Some people will be like, was it worth it? You did all this and it cut off your head. Franz Fanon has something very interesting he says, man. He says we have to celebrate all attempts all revolts, all attempts to get these guys off our backs, including the failed attempts, right? So some people think, oh, you did all this and they cut off your head, so why do you want to do it? No, if you don't want to do it, cool. But if someone's going to go do it, yeah, we salute that person. Failed attempts are equally, sometimes, let's put it this way, they're as important as successful attempts. Not just in this area, just about every other area.
They are expression of our human rights, as
Thank you.
Our determination to remain and be human, right? Give thanks.
Give thanks, my brother.
I would like to ask this notion that slavery still exists through our corporate way. This kind of 8 to 5 work is another form of slavery. I would like to ask, what do you think about that? Does that make sense?
I agree. Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Who knows? 20 years from now, 100 years from now, people look back and say, man, look how people lived. Right? We're in it. So sometimes we may think, this is normal, but look at the pain and agony people go through. Mm-hmm. Look at the diseases people are coming up because of this. Right? The trauma people have to deal with, the fear of falling off a payroll,
yes.
Can't pay my bills. Mm-hmm. But it's tied to the economics that we're dealing with, right? What we're dealing with economics, that's premised on this idea of one race is superior and another is inferior. So if I just go work hard and get a better paycheck, and I'm letting that philosophy stay put, as a Ras, let's tell us already, we have to try to wipe the slate clean. Sometimes people are like, we don't have anything to work with. Not true. We got plenty to work with. As brethren always, point out, we have so much to work with. To be able to say we're turning our backs on what their ideas are shouldn't be something that scares us. So people like to say, this is all we got, so let's manage with it. Big mistake. Then we're perpetuating the same Babylon system. No matter how much I hail you as my brethren, as a Ras, So yeah, slavery is happening that way too. And I don't know if I'm answering it the way you expected it, but basically I'm saying that everything, the knowledge system that we're dealing with, all areas of endeavor are, if we're dealing with discourse as we know it, are tied into slavery. So we have to abolish all of that. All of that. In your area, you're combating slavery. Mm-hmm. Even if it's black people, we're dealing with good black people. That area. Tell yourself you're combating it. If we're dealing with modern conceptual thinking. When I say modern, I'm saying ideas based on the world Europe created, including our post-colonial ideas. Some of our post-colonial ideas, let's say.
Get it right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can.
Please, my lord.
Yes, no.
Do we have any other comments, questions, suggestions, or additions?
Oh, sure.
Daddy Bosco joined us. So, Mr. President, you're welcome to the reasoning. Yeah, the presenter is done with the reasoning and we are taking comments, suggestions. So, Daddy B, welcome. My lord, please come in, Prof. Will.
Yes, I give thanks. And, I wanted to say that another thing that you also articulated, because, there's this idea that, for instance, the people who were sent to the Western world from Africa were just, some group of people in Africa, and the white man just came, and the people in Africa just sold that group of people, and that group of people ended up in the West. But that could not be further from the truth, right? I think that it is very important to advance the idea of anyone could be taken, right? That's how a whole lot of our chiefs and our queen mothers and our priests and priestesses and men and women of authority ended up in the right. A typical example is the case of the village of Atoko, which is in the Volta region, right? And they used trickery. What they did was they brought the boat onto the coast and sent a message to royal family over there and all the supporters of the royal family, and told them that we're having we're inviting you to come on board ship. We're going to kind of treat you all to some kind of festive occasion. And so when the king and all his people in his court went onto the ship, then the Europeans captured them and put them in the Western world. So absolutely, and there are many more instances of such, and that's why we see even in the Western world how men of authority and women of authority ended up there, because anyone could be taken. First of all, what the European did was to destabilize the whole political structures that were here prior to their arrival, and that having happened created a room for anybody to be kidnapped. In fact, the whole terminology of slave trade, in my humble opinion, should be just maybe not humble in this case, but just be abolished, right? And look at more like slave kidnapping.
That's what it was. Robbery, thieving.
Absolutely.
Thieving people, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And absolutely. Of course, the whole case is made about, the people in the motherland also being involved. As if everybody in the motherland just decided that we're going to go and sell some people over here. But the fact of the matter is, of course, there were some elites who were involved, and
hustlers. A lot of hustlers look ready for money, but most of the people, nah.
No, most of the people were against
the will of the people. Was no,
just as it happened in the Americas, right? And let's not forget that even in the Americas, you had black people here who were still conniving with a white man, who were enslaving other black people. This occurred in the Americas. You understand what I'm saying? So there's always the situation. We have Tipu in the eastern
Zanzibar area. The hustler making his money.
Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that most of the people in Zanzibar, Tanzania, will share the same ideas as Tipu.
The majority did not. The majority
absolutely were totally against, because guess what? The people who were taken away were our father, our brother, our sister, our cousin, our relative. Nobody wanted their people to be absconded and sent to something that somewhere they don't know, right? Exactly. So that needs to be emphasized. But again, we got to tell our own story, and the question is, we can't leave these things to the government agencies alone, right? Because we have seen the kind of textbooks that they are writing for our young people to study. I think that some of these things have to be like, sections like this coming up, and things can come out of that where such information will be made available to ones and ones. So man, give thanks for such reason. That's the problem.
I just wanted to add one quick one when you're talking about people being taken. There were people who actually work with the white people, right? Work hard, help them capture the rest of us, and then when they come on the ship, they knock them, add them to us. Now we all there inside the team. You just say you're free. So some people who ended up in the West were initially working for the white people too.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it was just arbitrary,
Arbitrary. These are the thieves too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give thanks. Rastafari greetings, one and all.
Give thanks. Give thanks.
And give thanks
Greetings, my lord.
radio culture. I have one quick comment to make. But before that, I want to also reiterate the fact that was originally stated by the speaker and already reiterated by Prof. Wiro. But I also want to add, because I just got some recent knowledge, so to speak, that there was actually some groups of people, families almost, tribes even, that dedicated themselves forming some type of a quasi-police force to defend the slavers over there in slavery, like over there in the West, right? There were people who struggled and clawed their way to get the favor of those who had enslaved them, so they could form a middle buffer type of, they get certain comfort, certain perks, certain recognitions. And so I just want to reiterate that. So slavery is a very complex story to tell. Very, very, very complex story to tell. Especially when you're dealing with diverse people from diverse backgrounds. Like as we speak right now, if you have people from, say, people that would call themselves African Americans seated among us, they would feel differently from how we feel. Because sometimes our experiences may be different. And so we have to all be very open when we are speaking about slavery so that we can all find a common story, no matter how bitter that truth is. And then we can move on from there. But let me also say that because we are speaking about abolition today, let's think of the Salaga Wall and icons like that. Some that we don't even know about. Again, like I was saying, I got some recent knowledge. Part of that recent knowledge I got was that there were chiefs in the north who abolished slavery to the point where they're like, even if you are suspected of being a collaborator with the enslavers, the punishment you had to bear, and not just you, your family had to bear, they made it very unattractive for you to be a collaborator, so that even your own family member could dub you in because they don't want to face the wrath of the king, right? The king said that when you go through this. So one of your nephews can go and dub you in because they know that, this guy, if they catch him, me too, I will suffer that fate. You know, that's the wisdom that the king was facing that whole thing with. There were people, the Salaga Wall, there are stories of people who were buried in the foundation of the wall as a deterrent to other people who will be collaborators. So they were building a wall to defend people, right? They had a clarion call. If you hear that call, it means the slavers are around. Run and hide behind the wall. Run for the wall. But that wall, while they were building it, what they did was that people who, number one, were too lazy to chip in. Not that if you are sick and you can't chip in, or fine. But when they also say, I did with them, I won't chip in. I won't build the wood and move from us. When they catch you. Number two, when you are collaborating with the slave raiders. Number three, when you are a slave raider yourself. When they caught you, they put you in the foundation of the wall and built the wall over you so that it will be a deterrent for other people who would think of doing something abominable like that, right? Now, with all that said, the last point I also want to make is that when we talk about the slavery thing, and I'm very happy that we have Ras Kwesi who has broken it down for us like that. Let's not look at slavery from the same perspective, right? Up till today, we have the name Donko. Easily, we can trace that too. But again, even within Ghana, when we say Donko, I don't look at somebody who's called Donko and say, no, you're Donko. We said, Donko was allowed to marry the master's child.
Okay.
If the Donko is smart enough, Donko, master name himself, about Bema. Papa Bema, no, he sang one or sorry, and one so bad, no, before any picture, no, they're correct. Meanwhile, he has a Donko who is sharp. And he also has a daughter. Why I not go make my Donko marry my daughter so that he will take care of the estate that I'm going to leave behind and bring out some sharp children for me while he's at it, right? So let's always make that clear distinction so that when you are faced with situations where some people are trying to be like, but Africans were already enslaving themselves. But you sold us into slavery. That you sold us into slavery thing, I think it's a session that has to be had on its own.
Yeah. It's a white people idea, man. Let's just face it. White people. Again, I was trying to ask, why did they say the Jews when you caused us Hitler to hurt us? They never blamed the Jewish collaborators, and there were a lot of them. Brethren.
But you keep saying, Russ, you don't hear white people saying that, though. That's the sad part. We hear our brethren and our sisters saying that.
But it taught them that line of reasoning. If you read the documents about history,
deal with it among Guyana. Because they may have thrown out the seed, but we are reaping the fruit.
Yeah, and as racists, we have to allow that.
We cannot trust ourselves as a people because one group of us think that we were sold, right, by the other group of people over there. And I always make the example. Yampas Kata. Yampas Kata. There's a group, there's a ghetto. Yeah, shit. Now, Papa, no, be scaly. Papa, no, we're trying to knock. If you move just so fast, no, yeah, chill more. That's it. Are they responsible for Mona Yeti or Mono?
Thank you, hey. Boost us up.
Yes, seriously. Open our minds to certain things, and then where apologies have to be given. Now, let's give the apologies by those who have to give the apologies. Because there are people, there are people who still thump them chest and say, we are the ones who used to do this and that. I was talking to one sister and you go shock Rasta in this day and age. She was freely telling me, say she comes from a lineage where they had a slave house in the back of their house. They can't share the family of their lineage. Say even in their family house, they had some type of they built it like a cell behind their house where they used to hoard slaves until these people would come and want to buy them. They know themselves. So let's not be like, oh, okay, we sold them into slavery before they were Operation Joseph and all that nonsense that some time ago some government was trying to come up with. That's all nonsense. Let's dig deep and let's tell the story as it is so that we can heal the wounds as they should be healed. And just like the plaster better it is when we have a headache. Nonsense.
Rastafari. Charlie, man, give thanks for those insights, man. Anybody has thoughts on that? I love how you call it abominable, though, if you see it like that. And serious points to make in job, beloved. Give thanks,
Rastafari. Yes, sir. So, I have some input. I like the fact that we've been encouraged to not just see the physical end to enslavement, but to go ahead with the mental, political, historical, and even economic, every other forms that enslavement took. But my input here may seem maybe will digress a little. I
love that.
Had an argument about the 13th Amendment, where a presenter was making the case that yes, like we are trying to establish, Africans abolish slavery because it's innate in them not to entertain or encourage it. But for Europeans, because they benefited from slavery, we cannot even say that to date they have abolished slavery. Looking at the 13th Amendment that says that slavery is abolished, but only as a punishment for crime. That means that crime is used as an avenue to further enslave black people. So for I even see the fight for decriminalization as fighting slavery, because through criminalization of persons that use cannabis, a lot of black people, we find ourselves in prisons, and then we return to chattel enslavement through the process. They call it the prison industrial system. And so through prisons, still black people are still being made slaves in every part of the world, especially in the West. But even here in Africa, Ghana, for possession of something like herb, healing, one can be incarcerated. And then also, there is also the idea of modern slavery, even at the north of Africa. It is believed Africans who try crossing over from the north to try to go to Europe through the North Africa, when they are enslaved. It's like when the system gets hold of them, they are enslaved. Recently, I just did a search for modern slavery, and it's like, yes, they give evidence of slavery still going on in Egypt and other parts of North Africa, as if slavery has never been abolished. And so, even though we are discussing the abolishment of slavery, physically, especially within North Africa, and also the use of crime still continue to re-enslave black people. And so this is the little comment that I wanted to put. Maybe the presenter will shed some light on that. I give thanks.
No, I appreciate what you're saying. You're saying some very important things. I was just two quick thoughts that hit me was when you said the criminalization and all that, like this is an aside, I was reading this bit about how the time where Africans from Cromantin go Jamaica, they'd be one of the main forces where they forced the British to abolish slavery. So they make it like, oh, they were just good guys, Wilberforce and people, they're just good people. They'd be like, no, there was some serious things that were happening that was messing up their sense of self. The dignity when it comes to being a British was being squandered the longer they held on to slavery. Because they said these Africans, when they arrived from present-day Ghana, one quote said, they must be warriors and criminals because they're too impatient. They want us to be patient, but these brothers and sisters, when they land, they start a fight. Also in Jamaica, and they were making some serious moves over there, So yeah, I just want to say that they call us criminals for any kind of reason where they go use to justify their thing, Another point you made was basically the world arrangement. We, as Professor was saying, we tried to touch on there a little, before that, was we are fighting not just what they present to us as the problem. We have another problem with the way they understand the world. Their idea of knowledge itself is what has to be wiped off our screens. You see, we have to come to that place and start being more serious about, their ideas are the problem. The ideas that they founded the world of knowledge on. And most of the time when we go to school and study philosophy, I'll study Aristotle as a pillar. As much as I'll disagree with him, if I'm not careful, I'll be in conversation with him. I don't want to be in conversation with Aristotle or Plato. I do not. Yeah, if you write an essay and you try to argue with Aristotle, then they give you good marks. Oh, you made a nice life. I'm not interested in talking to him. They don't exist.
True.
Yeah. I want to listen to the person who never hear of Aristotle's ideas, rather. So we have to enter that space where we're like, we don't have to care about their idea. We have to learn them to know why the world is as it is today. And through the discussions, we learn a lot. Some of things Jah Beloved throw into the story. Thank you, Jah Beloved, for those insights. Professor, Ross Edgehill, your questions. Things like that. They bring us to where things are at, right? And then we turn our backs on that. We are not in conversation with the world. They're not even interested in our ideas. No matter how much they clap when we talk and give us all whatever, they're not interested in the ideas, man. So we're not for being interested in having conversations with them. If we want to abolish this thing, we have to speak our own conceptual language.
Absolutely. It is important because we have our own way of looking at the world, and that's why. Let me give an example, maybe not a very palatable one, but it's one that is contemporary as well, right?
Those are the ones we want to hear, man. The unpalatable ones.
So, like, if you look, for instance, at the church situation, and the relationship of the church regarding the LGBTQ community. It is interesting to see that the no matter where you look at it, the church that comes out of Africa is the one that is really fighting hard for that thing not to enter into the African world. And the church that is coming out of Europe is saying, you know, this is okay. I mean, we have to embrace everybody. Now, what is the point that I'm making? The point I'm making is that these two polar opposite way of thinking is informed by our ways of knowing, by our foundational ideologies. So in Africa, the foundational ideology, which was there before the African Anglican Church or the African Roman Catholic Church, all these kind of churches came, is that everything we do has to promote life, right? The European ideology, that is not central to it. It's more of enjoyment, right? Everything you do has to be focused on enjoyment. So this, talking about Aristotle and Plato, I mean, look at their personal lives. Some of these were known to be pedophiles, even though they were philosophers. You understand what I'm saying? So these ideologies are also informing the way we see the world today.
Absolutely.
Therefore, we cannot, as Africans, just wholeheartedly accept, their ways of knowing and their ways of doing things, because we have ours. And as it's a human right to advance our ways of knowing and our ways of doing things. Now, I want to touch on some few things that Ras Kofi Asante also mentioned. The first one being the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment, absolutely, as you put it, states that freedom is not guaranteed to anyone who has basically committed a criminal offense. In other words, the state is permitted to establish prisons and incarcerate people who have committed offenses and have those people work for free. Now, we all know that anytime you're working for free, what we call that in common English parlance is, enslavement or slavery. So in other words, slavery is permitted if you are criminalized. And therefore, this allows for the criminalization of Black people. Now, let's look at it from another angle. And I think Ras Kofi Asante also mentioned this. But if it didn't, I'm going to throw it in there. The whole idea of criminalization of ganja also came as a result of Black people using the herb and them saying that, what?
Absolutely.
We want to stop these people and criminalize them and, make them go work for us for free. So all these things are linked. And all these things are also linked to the whole idea that the North African today feel like they have the right to enslave Black Africans. And again, in America here, if you go someplace where you go fill some forms, they have all the racial categories on the form. They go ask you, which of these you belong to? White or Caucasian? And under the white or Caucasian, they put in the Arab or people who have Middle Eastern origin. What's the point I'm trying to make? The point I'm trying to make is that the North Africans, they don't see themselves as Africans, Black Africans, as we see ourselves, right? In fact, we don't even need to go far to see that. In football, soccer, they go join the Arab League, they go fight their own Arab AFCON, and then when they finish, they come play for the Black man AFCON to join, right? So what the point you're trying to make is that somehow, because they don't allow countries such as Nigeria or Ghana to go join the Arab people, them are soccer tournament, but they come join the one under the guise of Africa. So the point being that those people have never seen themselves as equal to we. They've always seen themselves as superior to we. And even look, it's not just North Africa. It's going on in Saudi Arabia. It's going on in Kuwait, all these other countries where our sisters are being literally enslaved, right? And horrible things happening to them. Now, I think that all this speaks to the fact that it is also time that we articulate some of these things. We make our voices loud and strong on these kind of happenings. We cannot sit in any corner of the world today and allow for any of our brothers and sisters to be enslaved just because they are passing through a country. But then again, the people who are supposed to be doing the talking, let's take our so-called governments for instance, who are really not our governments, but just satellites of the Western system. They don't even know some of these things, or if they know, they just close a blind eye to it because nobody is saying it. And like Rasper said, it's not just stood against slavery. In fact, as a young rap, one of the first initiatives he took in Ethiopia was to work against the abolishing or the abolishment of the system of slavery that existed in Ethiopia, and by extension, connecting that to the worldwide system of slavery and the need to do abolish that. So, other African countries that we have on the continent today, and the leaders of these countries, they are not voicing anything when it comes to the enslavement of our brothers and sisters in Libya, in Algeria, in Saudi Arabia, and
Mauritania.
Right, but this is where Rastafari can come in, Mauritania.
Yes.
You can put pressure on them by making these things, part of the media landscape on a daily basis to the extent that, they have to do something about it. We shouldn't underestimate the power of our voice, right? We can use our voice to bring about some of these kind of changes that are necessary, especially as it pertains to I and I black people. Give thanks.
Give thanks. Because that could be me. That could be me over there in Libya. That could be me in Mauritania. Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yes.
No doubt.
Yes. And it's the same thing that motivated the people who attack the Kafus or storm the fort. They're not going to say, oh, this guy from, Baku, where me are from, Kita, so I don't worry. No, it's like it could be me. So we want this thing scrapped, Yeah. That's the thing. Give thanks, bros.
That's the part.
Yes, sir. Daddy B. Daddy B, there. Anybody want to share something?
Greetings to the house.
Greetings. Bro.
Yeah, it's been a while,
Yeah, good to hear you. Good to hear you out, man.
I'm enjoying the conversation, and it's in the right direction. Yeah, from seeing the slavery aspect from our media perspective, relating to the type of content that is being shown on the screen, the television, the program aspect. Mm-hmm. We have some types of movie that are foreign movies, but our people over here have translated it into our local languages. So you age on interpreted in our local languages. So I see the media aspect is contributing to some kind of mental slavery, and still the slavery is going on. Give thanks.
Serious. Give thanks. Not miss a lot of the things you say, but you're saying, making a serious point that we shouldn't just tie to, like Noah's prophet saying, we shouldn't just tie to the physical, the mental slavery part is major. Give thanks. Give thanks, Give thanks, Rasmauli. Yeah. And it'll be important to say we go come up with programs that go counter that. If you come up with stories, TV shows, whatever we have to just put something else on people's minds. Because the things on people's minds is what determines their actions, their behavior. That's why it's important to say we go, anyone who have ideas about making programs, movies, music, things that will actually alter the way we see the world. Those are the things we need. Give thanks.
Thanks.
Yes, brethren. Give thanks. Go ahead, sir.
Make a touch a little bit on what the brethren just, share with us. A very, very important thing, because I think that the TV has changed. Back home, when we were kids, I feel say there was a lot more content that projected African cultural values, even though we still had the Hawaii 5-0 and those kind of shows which were, projecting the Western values. We also had, like on Sundays, we used to have a program where it was by the fireside or something like that, like Anansi Sem and stuff, that kind of thing. And this whole kind of new thing where they go take some films and stuff from India, and then they do what do you call it, overdub, so to speak, right? Overdub, and then they speak the thing in tree, and the Indians will be in the background and say, one time, they say they call something kumkum bajia or something, and the two is time we say Rasta, you go see for church inside and thing. Everybody talk about kumkum bajia, and I ask myself, say, if we day here, we don't understand, say, if we're this bajia, we are also importing the values of India into our system. It's even more so if the whole thing is being done in a language that we all understand, right? So the media landscape has to cater to our way of seeing things as well. It has to articulate the African worldview that we are talking about. It has to be a participant in the abolition of this kind of slavery that is being advanced by these programs on the television. So give thanks to the brethren for sharing that.
Give thanks. I wanted to just say something real quick to tag on to what you're saying. Now, you're just saying that the governments, we can't wait on governments to do it, right? We can't wait on anyone else. So if you did it right now, any of us are here, or brethren we know, or sisters we know, youth, where they want to do something, it's along the lines of what we really want to say and what we really want. We have to encourage that. We can't be waiting on other people. These days, it may sound crazy, but you can do a lot of things on your phone. A lot of things were 20 years ago, if we do, there'll be free software. So that we want to do the high fidelity, 8K, 16K, whatever resolution works. But you'll be surprised that you can make something that may not be 8K or 4K or even HD. We're going to have an impact. But at the same time, we're going to rally for resources and do some of the, whatever, high resolution, best editing, best whatever that they talk about. But what I mean is that let's produce our own content. Let's not hold ourselves back and be saying, oh, this is not there. That is not there. As soon as we see that it's not there, we have to jump in and make something happen. Selassie had that vibe going where it's like, you have to do it. We're trying to get past the obstacles rather than talk about them. So there was a moment where Selassie appointed someone to a project, and the guy's like, I haven't been trained for this. Selassie said, you can do it. Learn what you have to learn and do it. You know? Yeah. It's your ballpark. Just go learn it and do it. You know? So we have to start, giving ourselves permission to try things. Greetings, Daddy B.
Yes, sorry I couldn't join at the start, but I just want to commend ones and ones for this wonderful initiative, to the speaker and to everybody on the platform. Sometimes these things we do not even know the impact it will be making. But I strongly believe that now that we're putting them online, it will be a reference material for people down the road. So big respects to all the speakers and all participants. It's last year.
Rastafari, yes, sir. And to Russ Ejo for making that happen. Always. Give thanks. Give thanks. A lot of work, Bridget. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Any more comments? Son of man, courage. Yeah, we've not heard from you. The boss. You've all not made any comments yet. So if you still have any questions, any inputs.
Hey, Rap Courage, at least make we hear you cough.
We still have about 11 minutes to the end of the reasoning, and so I'm still taking inputs, comments, suggestions, anything you didn't understand. You can ask the
So I want, although I joined late, so I don't know what has really been discussed. But what about this issue where the narrative seems to be that continental Africans sold their kindred into slavery?
Gotta be, that's just what we were going through. That's what we reasoned through, That's basically, that was the issue that we're dealing with. That's what motivated the topic and all that. Actually, this quote, Africans were the first abolitionists, was by a Nigerian professor who was teaching the U.S. for a while, extraordinary man, Dr. Mwabweze Okoye, very, very on point. He's the guy who's teaching in class, and he blasts the Queen of England. And one student runs off to go tell the president of the university that this guy, the professor, is disrespecting the Queen of England. So the president of the university invites him over, and he goes in, the president says, I want to discuss this issue with you. The student is complaining that you're disrespecting the Queen of England. He just shut the president down, tell him, say, have you read the literature? And the president had to shut up, and he left. So this is the kind of temperament. This guy's a fighter, right? And he came up with this thing. I was talking to him, and he was talking about how, just what you're saying, people say Africans sold their people into slavery, like we're complacent and all that. He was talking about it another way. He was thinking more about Africans in America. And he was saying that Africans in America were the first abolitionists right there. You had to, most of the time, give credit to white abolitionists. And if you look at it closely, the Africans were already trying to abolish slavery. Even a lot of African freed people who didn't want to repatriate to Africa, they were saying they would stay in America to fight to end slavery. They can't stand there and see their brothers and sisters in chains or leave. But yeah, here we're looking at what was happening on the continent of Africa. So we try to go through a lot of examples, or several examples in this particular discussion, that'd be. And the idea is to show the extent to which all that started in Africa. That's what it took with them. to the West that no, that we're not doing this. We're not playing this game, And if you look at all those acts of rebellion, even when people act like they don't know how to farm or they spoil the tool or they are sick, I know if we go farm, I know if we work on the plantation. All those were acts of resistance towards we're abolishing this thing. But today we're trying to be interested in what was happening on the continent, because of the question of we sold our people, right? And so we're trying to show the extent to which the will of the people, we try to illustrate it, Jah Beloved has done quite a bit to illustrate it. Porfirio has done quite a bit to illustrate it over and over. I'm sure someone else has also done that while we're speaking. That the fact that the fighting is happening on the continent as soon as the thing jumped off. And we can't say that fight is over, from the way man hear and feel our dreams. We hear from Mama Africa, if we could call it that. The fight is not over at all. Yeah, so that's what we're discussing, like Africans are the ones who made sure that slavery at least was put in question. We're not out the gates yet. We're not home free yet. The fight is still on because it's taking on all the different forms. The race that sees itself as superior still sees itself that way. So does he say what? We have to get busy and find a way to not just discredit, right? Yeah. Totally destroyed,
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Also, I think that the whole idea that, the entire people in Africa sold out the entire people in the Western world is an idea that is very faulty at its very foundation, right?
Thank you.
And the whole idea is that, okay, so for instance, where the people who are in Africa right now, let's say their forefathers and foremothers, they were within one part of Africa.
Yeah.
And then decided that, these people, they did this other side of Africa. Make I go gather them and send them to the West. There was nothing like that, right? And then secondly, we also have to understand that this is a function of their educational system here in the West. And by that, I mean that from the very first time, every black person who was enslaved was always looking to go back to Africa. So the slave masters had to come up with a thing to show them, say, you serve the Africa where you won't go away, you always want to run away. The people over there, they don't want you. They're the ones
exactly.
who sold slavery. And this whole idea persisted and continued even to the present day. So I think that, this kind of discussions we have, serve to dispel some of these falsehoods, right? These falsehoods that are not based in any kind of reality at all. Like, let's not forget the people who went, our blood relatives, same way. So there's nothing like you being on one side and they being on another side, and you just decided to go south to split. And I think that we've talked about so many examples here that show, the whole complex nature of slavery. That is not to say, as we said earlier on, that some African elites did not participate in this kind of thing, but it's so that did it happen also in the West that African American elites also participated in this kind of thing. So it's not as simple as one group of people deciding to just sell off one group of people. That is not based in the historical
Give thanks.
Okay, if nobody has anything to say,
call me, my lord. Yes, call me.
Oh, somebody was going to say something?
No, Raz, go ahead. You first, please.
Okay, give thanks. Enough thanks. All right. So there's a word that Daddy Bosco used that I want us all to make a key word in everything that we do, right? Narrative. The narrative. What is the narrative? The narrative is the way we think about something, essentially, right? The way a discussion is and the impact it has, and therefore the way it steers our understanding of the subject is very important. Now, why is this important? Because the more we hear something, the more it becomes factual to us, subliminally. Believe it or not, there are things that we hear that we don't necessarily believe, but we hear it so many times that it forms part of our psyche. Growing up, how many of us didn't hear all these stories about the rivers and the bosom way they inside, and how many of us saw those bosom? We didn't see them, but didn't we notice that every time our daddies were driving and they were getting close to the riverside, they would honk, just like they said they should, right? You think they really believed the bosom was there? Maybe they did, maybe not. But what I'm saying is, the narrative, however a discussion is had, becomes how people understand the subject. And so let's be forceful in our discussion of topics. Let's not sit down for things like this. You sold us into slavery to become the narrative. Let us establish the real narrative. And this is why I made the previous point. So, and yes, we are establishing the narrative by forcing an ignorant point of view, right? It's a well-researched point of view.
Sure.
Looking at what Rasquisi presented today, looking at what Professor Wiro has buttressed with, looking at the examples that we ourselves have in our own individual experiences, right? And then apply some common sense to the whole thing. Just like we said, it's not possible to say they are split us in two and then, they attack people that or anything like that. It's just,
but that's how they present it. They make it look like that.
The narrative. That's the narrative. That's the narrative that we must fight.
Yeah.
So let's be forceful in establishing our own narrative. Even when we are speaking among ourselves as kindred, right? As brothers and sisters, home and abroad. Let's be forceful in trying to get to the bottom of the issue. Because Enya first said somebody who was running away from this. Listen, I always say this. 2 miles away from the castle, there were people who were living there. So why would slavers leave people who live 2 miles away and go all the way to the north to go look for people? Let's face it. Certain people were friendlier to the whole process. We're not denying that at all. What I'm saying is that it's not fair though that me, my grandfather who was running away, or somebody else's grandfather, anybody's grandfather, who was running away, right, miles away from these slavers, who was helping to build the Salaga wall, he will be blamed for sending away people when somebody was living 2 miles away that wasn't even bothering the people at all. Let's have a serious discussion and let's direct the narrative properly so that we among ourselves will set the narrative for ourselves and not wait for the narrative to be set by somebody. Now I'll end this by saying something, one experience that I had back in the day when I was on a bus from Kumasi to Accra. This guy, you know how people come on the bus and they preach and preacher and then they finish and take their small thing and go away and everything. So this guy comes and preaches and quotes John chapter this and Matthew chapter that and Ezekiel chapter that and the next chapter that. And then there's this guy in the back who is just sitting down, arms folded, or trying to Padini Kasari. He raised his hand and he asked him, brother, what can John chapter say? Matthew chapter way and Ezekiel. Now what can two chapter way so right now, let's challenge ourselves with that. What is our own chapter with? That is the narrative. Let's be forceful in establishing the narrative. Give thanks.
Give thanks. And that's what Prof was saying about the lion has to tell his own story, man. Lioness has to tell her own story, Otherwise, the hunter will always be telling us what happened, Yes, Bridget.
Yeah. Yes, I have a question to ask, we all know that slavery is abolished, but it's still going on. So what is the solution for it to stop? Because we all know the situation, people going to Saudi, Qatar, and they're going through a lot. See? So I wonder, as we conscious people, what is the solution for we to do for all this to be stopped? That's my question. Thanks, Rastafari.
The answer going to have to come from the collective, though, but the question has an answer in itself, built into the question. And already we've heard some things, right? If we're carrying the spirit of abolishing slavery, then you speak or act in a way where it's like we're not tolerating that, right? So right now you go freestyle to whatever you want to do to push that, if it's part of it, exposing the world to understand that, and encouraging us to, exposing the problem for the world to understand, and encouraging us to, to the point, this thing is wrapped up in the idea of how we understand knowledge, right? Slavery is an expression of the world Europe created. I keep going there. I think that one sometimes they feel to make us feel say, oh, yeah, that's an abstract idea. What we're calling the modern world, what we're calling knowledge, right? The history of ideas, all these kinds of things. If we're not careful, we're reading these things from the idea of white people. If we start thinking our own thoughts, maybe you could we have to give ourselves permission to say, this is what I think we should do, regardless of how the world operates. Otherwise, my man would have chopped off those white people's heads, make the chopping head off. Right? People are not waiting to look at a white model. Maybe it's a model self you never think of before, you never see. Just do it. It will be connected to what our ancestors were doing. Our ancestors wanted to end the slavery any way we could. So anything we will do with that vibe in mind, in our heart, we did take to move. So someone were talking using media, Brethren just talking about narrative, speaking, thinking, moving in that direction. Mutago say sharp as an arrow, right? We stay on it and just keep pushing that idea. Because like you say, man, if I think of my brothers right now, even in Ghana, sometimes we do things when people start say street your home is beautiful and your cocoa fine, all those kinds of things. In a sense, they're telling you that black is a fault. It's tied into this idea still. Yeah, the idea of blackness synonymous with not being part of this story. And we don't want to be part of that story. We have to destroy that story. So I think the way you're going is good. We have to think through, what do we do together, and any kind of thoughts that hit you, let's follow through with it. Let's try it out. Maybe it's something we haven't thought of. Maybe it's something we've always been doing, but just bring it and let's do it. Any kind of idea, if you like something and you get some new thought, bring it, make we do it. You and your brethren and your sister, little collectives, huge collectives, whatever we do, as long as we're doing something, Selassie say what? Action, thought through activity, right? We have to be doing things about these problems and not waiting on governments, and forces that may not be feeling the thing the way you feel on. The way you ask the question, I know you to feel the thing, when maybe that's not the way someone else to feel on. So once we're feeling it, do what you think we for do.
And also, if I may quickly, I think some of these things have also already been put out there for us already. The words of the Right Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey already has showed us the way. Because a lot of what we're talking about, let's face it, boils down to economic independence. You know what I'm saying? Because the reason why somebody will come and affect the way you govern yourself is because you are connected to them in a sector where they can affect your economics, right? In a negative way. Now, we have a system where, and to me personally, I think that a lot of talk can be had about all of this, but we can crystallize that into one simple idea. Let's reset, and again, for real, I know the season, right? So I'm using reset advisedly. But let's reset the world economic order. That to me will be close to a resolution of the issue, right? Because as long as we have a system where the price of our oil, the price of our gold, the price of our minerals, the systems that we should use for ourselves is dictated by some other entities, and we are threatened if we try to kick against that, right? As long as that system is in place, that's what His Majesty was referring to when he says, until the philosophy that holds one race superior and another inferior, until it's what? And Kwesi said it. until it's destroyed, not sustained and babysitted and young people honey and fun how would be said no. Mash it down. So that's how we have to think about it. I don't think that it's going to be an event. I think it's an ongoing process, and what we are doing is part of that, because we have to start from ourselves, how we think about making this happen, right? How do we make this thing in our own ways? How do we achieve economic independence among ourselves, rather than continue fueling a system that only goes to kick against us? So Rasta, it's a deep question. I don't think that anybody has the simple, straightforward answer to it. I think that everybody has a piece of the puzzle. And again, I think the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey, and it's indeed His Majesty himself, and Empress Minen, and all the forebears that have come before us have pointed the way. And it all boils down to, first of all, and this is where we bring it down to the politics. Because if we have a country where our water bodies are at risk, right? And the people who are put there to govern are not even batting an eyelid. You know what I'm saying? It's dangerous. It's dangerous because what ensure your Benum crown is going to be determined by somebody. Guys, we are sitting here talking about all these things. You know that Galamsey has drowned other big issues like the GMO issue. GMO, yes, in Ghana, they're already trying out GMO cowpeas in Ghana as we speak. We don't even know because they are way bigger issues, so to speak. But eventually, we are going to lose our dependence because our food, the seed is going to come from somewhere else. The water that we're going to drink, our water bodies have been messed with, right? Gold, now within 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years, whatever. And then how long does it take to reclaim the land? You see? And what are we doing about all of that? Okay, so however we think that we can plug in to be beneficial to the land that has nurtured us now, I feel that that's the answer to that. But of course, that's not the whole answer. That's only a part of the answer. Keep going.
Greetings.
President.
I like chipping on this. Beloved is touched on the economic bit. Nkrumah said it rightly. He says, seek ye first the political kingdom, and all things will be added unto it. What do I mean? You see, people go to Saudi Arabia to work and get 5,000 cedis. Can you imagine what the economy of Africa would have been like if we had an African common market, a borderless Africa? So that means all those people who go to Saudi Arabia do not need to go to Saudi Arabia. There are lucrative jobs all over Africa that Africans can migrate and do. It got to a time where the top hierarchy of the legal system in Gambia was Ghanaian. At a certain point in time, it was Sierra Leone, where Ghanaians were in the top hierarchy of their system. Libya, I remember clearly when people used to go to Libya. Imagine if they were legally migrating to Libya to work. Just like the last time I was talking to Seven, he had a New York address. Recently, I see he has a Los Angeles address. Seamless movement. That is one of the antidotes to this problem Africans constantly find themselves in: a brain drain, a skills drain, a drain of the youths going to other what they perceive to be economically better countries. So one of the things, and it's a bit medium to long term, that we need to look at to fix this problem fundamentally is a borderless Africa, where an African with a certain skill set can migrate to another part of Africa. Even if not full-time migration, go there, work, and come back to their home base. So that's one of the things that we need to look at. Until we come to agree that the solution to Africa's problem in African unity, where the resources of the entire African continent can serve the entire African continent, then we'll be in this quagmire. So for me, I think one of the things we need to critically think about is over the next 8 to 12 years, and this might not be a consensus, but I'm strongly suggesting that to change the dynamics, conscious-minded people have to sit around the table where legislation is made, where political power is disseminated. What is happening is, so Jah Beloved was talking about a situation where our water bodies are being destroyed, and the people we vote for to ensure that these water bodies are preserved for future generations don't seem to care. So as long as I and I who feel, we're concerned about Africa, we're, conscious and things, as long as we continue to play on the periphery, we will always sing lamentations until we take that bold step that Osagyefo took. Osagyefo says after reading Marcus Garvey, he was fired with a zeal to achieve the ideals Marcus had enumerated. So he moved to Manchester. After the Pan-African Conference, through various circumstances, he came to Ghana. And then we all know the rest of the story. So we don't have to let that baton lie on the ground. We need to pick it up and run with it. And I sincerely believe that if we look at things this way, we'll be able to, as it were, change a situation where young, able-bodied Ghanaians go to Saudi Arabia, go to Qatar. They even go to Yemen, where there's war.
Yeah.
You understand? Yeah. So this is my 2 cents. Give thanks.
Give thanks, Daddy B.
Give thanks, my Lord. Yes, we recognize the presence of Ras Malcolm, Western Regional Chair of RCG. He hasn't said anything yet. Trust he's listening. My Lord, if there is any questions, contribution you would like to add, please, the floor is open. The boss, we've also not heard from you yet, so if you want to make any input. Please, I have something small just to say. Yes, about Africans and their role in the abolishment. I think I gathered from somewhere that oftentimes during the narrative, we don't recognize the Africans who lost their lives fighting the slave raid or the capturing. And so when our brothers outside the continent argue that Africans sold each other into slavery, they forget to acknowledge those many Africans who lost their lives. And from what we heard, it may even look like more people lost their lives fighting slavery, preventing themselves from being captured, than the number of people who were actually captured and sent to the West or enslaved. One time we visited Cape Coast, and one of the brothers pointed us to the fact that we should observe the fact that every dungeon, they have cannons pointed to the people. So he asked us why we think that some of they have cannons pointed to the people. And he reminded us that the essence was to show us that even those who were in the dungeons, the slave so-called castles, they were threatened by the people. And they consistently, sometimes the people break into the dungeons to free the slaves. And so one of their targets was to make sure that they keep the people in check, hence the cannons or firing machines over the dungeons. So yes, this is just to buttress the point that yes, Africans ourselves, we participated because innate in us, we are not the people who endorse or who celebrate slavery or the enslavement of our own kind. So this is a little I wanted to add. So please, if anybody has any other input, comment, addition. Our time is up though.
It'd be good to hear Russ Malcolm.
Russ, you did it. Russ Malcolm. Please, let's hear your voice.
I'm good. Man is so evening. So man good, you know.
Any thoughts, any kind of insights, questions? Your thoughts would be valued, man. Tell us something, brother.
Oh yes, Brother Seven. Everything is set speed, you know, because I think Daddy Bosco hit the nail right on the head. We must be part of decision making. That is the bottom line. That is it. Because once we are on the periphery, we are on the sideline, decisions will be taken to our disadvantage. So that is what I guess maybe our generation, we could not actually make it manifest. So maybe we have to empower the youth and actually put them in a set of mindset where they should be part of decision making, the front line of political decision making. That is where the decisions are made. Otherwise, at the end of the day, decisions will be made to the disadvantage of I. And Daddy Bosco has said it all. He said we will always be singing lamentation. So I will concur to the position of Daddy Bosco.
Give thanks. Thanks.
Okay.
So please, I want to ask if anybody has any other input to make, or we'll go back to the presenter to give us his closing remarks, and then we call it an evening.
Should I go ahead? Yeah. So what you said, Kofi Asante was speaking to what John Beloved said earlier on about people who were close to the castles who were spared, but not always, because you say that the point of the cannons are those people too. And from the first epigraph that I read, I try to talk about the extent to which you could be living close to the castle. We talk about people attacking the Cape Coast Castle, you know, all those castles. People attacking from the vicinity. So yeah, those people that were thought to be in the white protectorate were fighting against slavery. They would attack the castles. They were not coming from Kumasi to come and attack the Cape Coast Castle. It was people in that Cape Coast area who were attacking the castle. So both coexisted at the same time. I wanted to ask to the point about economics. You know, the solution is economics. It's a very beautiful idea, you know, but I think we'll make a huge mistake if we think it's just economics. That's the point I'm trying to. Let's abolish the knowledge system, which includes economics is just one pocket, man. Let's face it. You know, there's a lot of research that's countering this idea of it's all about economic solutions. People have tried it. You know, African revolutionists have tried that. You know, other people have tried that. It's not just economics, man. There's a desire economy, right? How come a lot of white people never owned slaves, but they were supporting slavery? Slavery was taking the jobs away from them, but they were supporting slavery. So it's not just economics. It's political. And I think what I'll beg of us to do in these reasonings is also to rethink meanings of concepts. You know, we don't go to a concept through the word, right? You don't just hear economics and go find out what it means in the dictionary or what philosophers have said and said this is what economics is. No, let's go to what economics is, and then we think about the word. Because right now, the words they've given us are the filters through which we go to our understandings of things. What I'm trying to say is this. Our idea of economics may not be what we will be saying at all. if we never heard them talk about their definitions of economics. Our idea of politics may not be what we're trying to deal with at all if we never heard of their ideas. So we're talking about, get involved in politics. Let's rethink politics. What would Kwame Nkrumah think about politics today if he had the benefit of hindsight that we have? Do you think he would think the same way? I doubt it. Because Nkrumah was a dynamic thinker. He was evolving, right? He would change some of his positions, not abandon positions, but maybe alter his approach. We update our knowledge. But one thing we seem not to be questioning is epistemology. We're not questioning knowledge itself. And we have to. Otherwise, we just run around in circles and then we say, we have to. Yeah, you can join the government. The government can be full of rascals, and I guarantee you Africa will be no better shape. It can be full of conscious people. It will be no better unless we destroy the order of thinking that we have in the world today. That's a guarantee. So let's talk about economic solutions, but he tells you about points where material economic solutions will not fix it for us. It's on another level that we have to do a total scrapping and reconfiguration of ideas, right? It's good to say, United States of America, they've done it in America, why can't we do it? You know how much stealing and murder they did before they built the United States of America? Mm-hmm. Do you want to do the same thing? I'm not going to join you if that's what you want to do. But we can build a united Africa, but maybe it won't be like their thing. You know what I mean? Let's be real about these things. We have to think about things on our terms. Maybe they've beaten our ideas out of us violently through our education. So we don't have anything. So every time we hear them say liberal, we say we're liberal. I'm radical, I'm radical. Militant, I'm militant. I'm conservative, I'm conservative. We hear everything they say, we repeat it. No. What if we never heard their language? Let's get to that place. Strap our minds up of all the ideas and say, look, what is economics? What does it really mean? Let's work hard and define it for ourselves. Something that benefits us and go for it. Otherwise, we'll be chasing this money nonsense that never will benefit us. So I'm saying I concur with what everyone is saying. What I'm saying is that maybe let's have two tracks going. Those who want to believe fully, like let's work with what we have, cool. But there's a part that is so underdeveloped in our thinking. This part of what else is possible. Right? Let's put more energy into that. Let's redefine politics. Let's abandon the idea of politics that has been given to us. Reject the idea of economics that has been given to us. Reject the idea of knowledge that has been given to us and come up with something that really means something. Unless we think we're inferior beings that don't have any original ideas, so we have to copy theirs and build on theirs. And then we'll be in the same gutter, right? We have to be more daring. We're creative people. Let's sit down, put the idea. Let's think of new ideas. Let's dream up things. And let's move forward with those ideas and be confident that our ancestors are the ones that are working with us in these directions. Because what we're doing is when we say let's join politics, basically you're working with a nation state that was created by Europeans. The Ghana thing we're having, we didn't create that. It was a European fabrication. We're struggling to make sense of it. It's on their terms. Our economy. Even so, we have our own African continental economy, and we have to think about what we mean. Otherwise, we just go replicate what's happening in Europe. So let's just say we should be careful not to repeat the politics of 19th century nationalism, European nationalism. And unfortunately, that seems to be our ideas that are the direction which we've been opened up to through our education. We have to rebel against that. We have to turn our backs on that. So to wrap up, I just want to start just list the number of forts that were attacked. I've mentioned some, but Comenda was attacked by people living in Comenda, the Comenda Fort. Secondly, there was a fort there, I mentioned that earlier on. The people who lived in that vicinity attacked it with the idea of ending slavery, trying to free captives. Cape Coast Castle, our people in that vicinity attacked it several times. I was reading Cape Coast governor's records, and he was talking about how often Africans tried to attack them to free slaves, enslaved Africans, so to speak, captives. Elmina Castle was attacked too. Anomabo, it happened. Hafasina, Christian Boy. So these are the ones that have been documented. The point is we were attacking, and we have to also remember that the failed attempts, like the brother was saying, more people died trying to fight. All this talking we're doing today is in honor of them. I go with Fanon when he says the failed attempt must be as valuable to us as the successful attempts too. So all the people who let their lives go so that we could move around a little freer, let the world know that we're not taking these things. We honor them, we salute them. That's the basis of what we're doing right now. And we have to win this one for them, more or less, because all the skulls and skeletons under the Atlantic Ocean right now, tons of them. People who jumped off the boats, people who died on both sides of the Atlantic, and we're talking about the people taken to the east to in India. All those are the people we're fighting for. We have to fight for some finality here, not by going to replicate what Europe has done and just paint it black. So that's where I'd like to end it.
Yes, that's fine. Yes,
Give thanks, my Lord, for the education. Yes. I've been inspired, motivated, and educated, and I trust everyone here as well. We give thanks. We will encourage ones and ones to check our YouTube channel, Rasejo, our IT expert, who has been uploading most of the lectures on the YouTube channel, so we can check it out, we can share, we can subscribe to, share for those who participate in the reason to also benefit from the reasoning. With that being said, I'd like to give thanks for everyone who joined us, especially to the presenter, yes, Prof. for your presence, contributions, radio culture for publicizing, yes, sharing, making sure ones who are not here can also listen. Rasa Jonah, continue to give thanks for your works. Daddy Bosco, we give thanks for your leadership. Yes, my Lord. So this has been next 2 weeks.
We give thanks for your organization.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Always staying on top of it.
Yes, sir.
So blessed,
Rastafari.
I give thanks, my Lord. Rastafari. So next 2 weeks we'll come again with another edition. We'll announce the topic as we go along. So I appreciate everyone. My Lord, give thanks for your presence.
Give thanks. One more time. Bless you, love. Yes, sir.